afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Satish Munnolli speaking from Actrek, Kharghar, Navi Mumbai. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Professor P.V. Konnur, President of LIS Academy, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on this conference with a difference, the third LIS Academic Conference with the theme Reinventing Excellence in Librarianship. I also would like to thank the chair of the panel, Dr. Professor Parthsarthi Mukhopadhyay, professor and head of the Department of Library and Information Science, University of Kalyani. I'm just going to share my presentation on this role of librarians in changing dimensions of publications and research ethics. My presentation outline goes the cycle of academic research, publication ethics, and various changing dimensions of information and publications, and the role the librarian can play in various publication activities and ethics, and what are the various challenges they face, and how best the librarians can just leverage or improve upon their competencies in facing the challenges as well as resolving those issues. And finally, I'll just sum up with a brief presentation of my this topic. Coming to this life cycle of academic research of any individual researcher, you will have a various processes like generation of ideas, survey of the literature and project proposals, raising the funds from the various funding agencies, meetings in various committees, and having a collaborators along to be there in the project, as well as doing the research and generating the research data, and again interpreting as well as manuscript writing and identifying the journal wherein the research can be published, and the publishing the research in the national and international journals. And finally, the showcasing of research also is one of the core activity of any researcher. In the entire process of this research activity of any scientist, honesty is one of the front and foremost fact one should really just go by. This committee on this publication ethics, it has identified some of the elements like honesty, trust, fairness, respect, responsibility, and courage. So these are the some qualities one has to imbibe while just going for the any kind of research, in irrespective of the discipline or domain they are just going to work on. And if you just go in the publication activity of any researcher, these are the key players in the research, like contributor, supervisor, editor, and reviewer, and finally the publisher. The role of the contributor, in line with the guidance of the supervisor, the entire research activity is carried out by this contributor under the supervision of this guide or supervisor, wherein the credibility of the entire research work will be by these contributors and supervisors. And editor will carry the responsibility of assessing the quality and currency of the research, whether it is fitting in the scope of the journal. And reviewers are the experts, wherein they reasonably evaluate the work of a research to accept the research for the publication. And finally, the publisher is the responsible person for publishing the research work in wide formats for wider circulation. When you just come to this publications or information, what you can say, domain, in the last 2 decades, the information has gone in multi dimensions as well as the multi formats. If you look at the publication formats in the 2 decades before, only the print versions were there, and along with that, I would say that the preprint version or publisher's print version or reprint versions, these were the versions which were prevailing before 2 decades. But in the internet era or digital era, the scenario is totally changed. The same information is available in multi formats, in the open access model, and or if it is available in the publisher's platform, if it is available as a kind of a article in the institutional repository, or whether it is a kind of a small clip of the research, the same information is distributed and also is available in different files and formats. Very difficult for any researchers to identify which is the right information and actual and factual what you can say source for identifying the article and to cite or refer for the research activity. What is the role of librarian in this kind of environment? So if you look at the previous slide, the researcher is very much occupied in various research endeavors, and simultaneously he has to look for the various some other projects in the domain. And the role of librarian, one can just contribute in a sense like the research projects by the various government and national and international government agencies also advertised or published in the news media. So the librarian can just very much capture and communicate all these research projects to the concerned project principal investigator or scientific officers, so that they can take up these projects also for their research activities. And coming to the online sources, there are plenty of online resources which are coming out in the public domain. Even the subscribed resources are available, and many of the end users are not really aware about the fair use of the resources. So it is a responsibility of the librarian to just educate and orient the users for the judicious use of or fair use of the subscribed resources without even violating the copyright laws. And librarian can just play a kind of a proactive role by supporting getting the required articles for the researcher by searching various databases. And of course, remote access facility is one of the common phenomena in the present COVID scenario. One has to really just look upon establishing the remote access facility for the end users from the institute. And some of the other bibliographical management tools like EndNote or even Zotero kind of online tools, bibliographical management tools, one can just reasonably just one should make a kind of provisions and facilitate all these tools also to the users or researchers community for the enhancement of the research. And plagiarism check services also are one of the major kind of online services in the present scenario, wherein the librarian has to take a lead in educating the users how best end user or researcher can use these online tools, and librarian should definitely help the user how best the reports are to be interpreted, and also they should also give a broad overview on the various policies of the governing bodies, whether it is a UGC or any other institute or university bodies. What are the policies? One has to reasonably abreast on all these aspects to the researcher while just carrying out the research or even after generating the research report on the plagiarism check online tool. And evaluating the authenticity and impact of journals is also one of the core areas wherein many of the times health science professionals or clinicians, as per my observation goes, they find it difficult to just identify. Many times the similar titles are there or same titles are there, and they find it difficult to just where to publish their article. So that time the librarians can very much come out with the kind of online journal ranking tools like Scimago journal ranking, or even otherwise various other online tools which are available in the web. They can just reasonably evaluate the quality of the journal or authenticity of the journal, or even they can assess the impact of the journals by just providing the impact factor or site score, or even the publisher, who is the publisher in that way. And also it is a responsibility of the librarian to just abreast on the predatory journals and how these predatory publications are just really just damaging the entire research community people by publishing the articles on the by asking for the publication fees in the form of article processing fees, but without having any quality or any kind of a review process at the back end. So librarians can very much educate the users on the predatory journals also, so that the scientific community is not really going to publish their articles in such kind of a journals. And coming to this, evaluating publishers' emails for the credibility. Many times the publishers are or editors are communicating to the individual senior scientists which are experts in their domain by sending a mail to submit the article or to be a part of a kind of a team member in the editorial team. So even librarian can just reasonably just identify such kind of emails, whether they are the real authentic coming from the authentic sources or from the authentic publishers. So they can assist in evaluating the kind of communication what the mail is conveying, and also they can just check various what you can say aspects of the credibility of the publisher, or whether the email is coming from a genuine publisher or editor, or it is a kind of a fake email. Another aspect is like transformative agreements and the article processing charges. A new concept has come into the scenario in the present era. Like if a library is subscribing a kind of a journal, the article processing charges submitting an article in that particular journal is reasonably waived off, or even one can just negotiate in the agreement to waive off that particular charge, or even considerably just minimize the charges on these APCs. So these things also can be just brought to the notice of the scientific community, so that they can just look and select the best of the best journals of their choice. Publishing in the association publications also is one of the best options, wherein taking a membership in the associations, the association editors will just waive off the publication charges if the member of that association is contributing an article to that particular journal. And some of the standard practices, whether it is in the social sciences or humanities or pure sciences or health sciences, of course, it's a set norm. Everyone has to follow some standard practice while doing the research. These are some of the very core activities the librarian can just very much contribute in the research endeavors of a researcher, whether it is discovering or locating and accessing the important journal or article of the choice of the researcher, or even evaluating the information resources, whether the article selected by the end user or a researcher is kind of coming from an authentic source. And even the quality of the journal or article also can be reasonably assessed by just using various tools available on the online platform. And also, while citing, also the plagiarism prevention tools or even citation styles or citation managers will very much come in handy ways, so that the users can just very much use these tools for drafting or writing their research reports. And finally, as I just mentioned, communicating or publishing the research articles, as well as the new trend is like in health sciences or clinical sciences, the supporting or supplementary material also is just attached along with the article. So many of the science articles in science domains or even in the health science domains, apart from the actual article, there are so many supplementary materials are also uploaded on the publisher's platform sometimes, or even as per my experience, many of the times users are very much keen on and interested in having the supplementary data also for their research activity. So these are some of the very new versions which have come in practice in the recent decade. Otherwise, all these concepts are not really there a couple of decades before. So what are the challenges? Since the information is just changing, as I just said, the preprint version and publisher's version, or even post-print version or something of that kind. Now the same information is available in various format, like abstract, or whether it's a digest, or in the news magazines or newspapers. If it is coming as a digest, wherein the same research is just brought in a kind of a easy digestible format. So that is also kind of authentic information, but one has to be fair enough, and while just using any kind of information which is just available in so many versions. Main challenge for the librarian is to understand these all various versions which are available in the online platform, and how best he or she can just integrate all these products onto the library systems. And then technology know-how behind the entire online versions that are available, and whether it is the OpenX platform, or even if the task is bit too much a technical, whether with this activity can be just outsourced, and also what is the cost behind the annual maintenance of outsourcing, as well as some of the copyright agreement models also reasonably one has to really go through and understand before implementing into the library system. And in the present scenario, the user expectations are very much technology driven, and also they expect some value additions to the services what we just provide. So the delivery of information to the end user should be a customized version. So in most of the cases, even whenever we are just getting a information about the new, what you can say, articles published by our researchers. We are just communicating the same to all the users committee in the center by circulating a kind of a weekly newsletter from the library as a kind of e-alert. Apart from the regular articles that are published from the institute, we also just communicate some of the new technologies or new inventions or new discoveries in various subdomains of the institute for the information of the end users. And many times we receive kind of mails or calls requests on providing the information on those versions also. By looking at the entire scenario, the librarian has to very much well equipped with all these ongoing trends, and he has to definitely enhance his competencies to serve the user community. So the professional need to adapt these constantly changing and challenging situations, and they have to understand the new trends and implement the new services in the library systems. So apart from introducing the new services, so the librarian can also market the core services of the library also, so that the end users are very much receiving the required and desired information at their end. To sum up the entire presentation, as I mentioned, the information is growing in many folds, and it is going in the multi dimensions. Expectations from the librarian is increasing considerably, so the responsibility. It is a time for the professionals to develop their skills to address the growing demands of researcher in the scientific publishing endeavors. With this, I just conclude my presentation. Thank you.